back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I am here today to talk about one of my SPFBO books and give you a review, and that is A Cursed Son. This one is a story which follows a decoy princess in training who is sort of set up to take eyes away from the main princess to act in her stead and go and do and be whoever the kingdom needs her to be, instead of the actual princess having to do it. And she is called Astra. She is one of 3 decoy princesses who have been in training for a long time. Basically their whole lives they've been set up to train and be developed into these decoy princesses. They're kind of friends. They have a bit of a strange relationship really, where they're trying to one-up one another and be the best decoy so that they get sent on the missions and get to do things, but equally they have grown up together. They're kind of like sisters, they're kind of like best friends, but they also have had recent fights and they squabble and that kind of thing. So yeah, their relationship is a little bit all over the place. And this story is definitely what I would class as a kind of romantasy story. It has a large focus on romance, and the romance is kind of ever present throughout the story once our main character meets her love interest. And for me, this one didn't work that well overall. It was okay. Astra's story is kind of largely about inner turmoil and her learning and growing and questioning who she is and who she's been taught to be and what she's been taught, because she believes her tutors, she believes everything she's been told, because why wouldn't you? And yet when she is exposed to other beings in the world, particularly fae beings, because she's not really met any of them, she's a little bit like, wow, maybe things are not quite as I thought they were. She also has a deep, dark secret that she can't tell anyone about her own heritage, and that plays a part in the story as well. And of course, there is a big presence of enemy to lovers throughout this book. When we do meet her love interest, he is an enemy figure. He is someone that she is very against and wants to get away from. And then when we meet him again, he is kind of forcing himself to be in a romantic situation with her. And it's not rapey, but it's definitely a bit borderline towards like capturing / kidnapping her. I didn't love that for a beginning of a romance particularly, but also I think that the 2 characters are ever butting heads throughout the story, like constantly butting heads. Obviously they come from very different backgrounds and have different beliefs about things, and it's hard to reconcile that, but my goodness, did they kind of have the same argument over and over again? Oh yes. And it felt like it. It felt very repetitive and very monotonous, especially when they were in the midst of arguments. I found myself kind of rolling my eyes going, I know this, I've understood this, I don't need to be told this again. And for me, that was a little bit frustrating, because I think if things had been tightened up and some of these repetitions had not been there, it would have been a more free-flowing story with a bit more action happening, rather than kind of slow scenes of dialogue that felt a little bit tiresome. The magic of this world is very much rooted in the idea that different fae have different powers, and depending on which branch of power you have kind of gives you different things you can do. Of course, our main character does have some potential with magic and is on a sort of journey to uncover and learn about this as we go through the story. So there is that avenue that we could have maybe pushed into a little bit harder. I feel like the magic of this world could have been really, really cool, and yet to me it feels like you're just told things that happen. It didn't feel like it really developed or gave an awful lot of insight until much later in the book, and then when it does give insight, it felt a little bit too late. And I did struggle with our character kind of relationship, because I just felt like it wasn't realistic. Like it just felt like the flip between enemies to lovers was unrealistic for me. They hate each other one moment and then suddenly they love each other. Like, I don't believe that. I don't really get on board with that. And this story didn't do enough to convince me that they had gone from enemies to lovers. It felt like they went from enemies to just slightly less enemies and then suddenly jumping in bed. I don't know. It was weird and I didn't love it, but the story is there, and it's okay. It wasn't for me. Personally, I felt like the writing was a bit weaker in this than some of the other SPFBOs I've read this year. It didn't feel like it was as strong of a book. As I've said, repetition and dialogue was a little bit weak. It didn't feel super flowing. So I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. It was okay. It wasn't for me. It was definitely not a series that I personally would carry on with. However, it may be a series that works for some other people, so I'd be interested to hear your thoughts if this does sound like a book series that you might want to start. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another SPFBO review very soon. Bye all!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.